what is standing in opposite contrast to a lot of unfact-checked tweet is actually a really well fact-checked and substantive article written by two dear friends of the pod this week that we want to highlight for all of you, especially as it pertains to the impact of healthcare, Trump care reform on the Asian American community. So, Tony, you want to give us a quick take on that?
Yeah. So, of two former podcast guests of ours, of course, Kathy Ko-Chin and Chris Liu, authored a piece in Time on this. We will link to the article, of course, in the description of this episode. Chris was on episode 21 of the Model Majority podcast, and Kathy was on episode 24. So please check them out. They talked a little bit about healthcare. Well, Kathy talked pretty much only about healthcare while she was on the show, which was fantastic. But if you want more background, please check out those old episodes. But the thing I really enjoyed about this article, besides the fact that like two friends of the pod came together to write that article, is it did a great job of showcasing facts specifically about the API community as it relates to healthcare, and those facts are often very difficult to parse out. And I just wanted to highlight two quotes from that article to give our listeners a sort of a good sense of how the bill, this Graham-Cassidy HJ bill, will impact the AAPI community. So, quote, under the ACA, 2 million Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders gained health coverage or are eligible for coverage. In our community, uninsurance rates decreased by 57% for Asian Americans and by 47% for Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. Basically, so honestly, Obamacare was a great thing for the API community because of how many more people were able to get coverage. A great thing. Now, here's something else we need to highlight here, though, is that, quote, half of all Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders are estimated to have diabetes or pre-diabetes, conditions that could lead to premium increases of up to $5,600 under Graham-Cassidy. The premium increase for a pre-existing condition of a cancer patient would exceed the annual income of most Asian American families. And those two quotes, honestly, after I read them, really gave me a lot of background on the bill, but just showed the AAPI community itself is going to be highly at risk if Graham-Cassidy HJ is to come to pass. And that's one of the reasons why, if you are, most of our listeners, I'm sure, are AAPI Americans, and we need to be calling our members of Congress, we need to be calling our senators, we need to be urging them to not support this awful bill. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of Asian American Pacific Islanders live in the states of California and Hawaii and Nevada, places that are, except for Nevada has Heller, who was one of the authors of this bad bill, but places where we do enjoy Democratic representation in the House and in the Senate. So we need to be talking to our relatives and also our friends on Facebook or wherever else they might be in places that are represented by people who might support this awful bill. We need to tell our friends to call their members of Congress and urge those people, regardless of political party, to vote against this bill because it is simply bad for our community.